So I think I'm going to returning to Yu-Gi-Oh! Welcome back to Returning to Yu-Gi-Oh! Feels good to say. Feels good to be here, and last week actually went quite well. We put together our first hero list and got a passing grade in regards to matches won. Additionally, we weren't really playing a deck. It was kind of just a pile of cards at that point. I went into that playing a lot of things that I felt probably would end up leaving, but I wanted that reassurance that they just weren't right for the deck in this meta, and I feel like we have a lot of information. I feel like the deck can perform a lot better than what we showed last week. I'm really excited. I want to take it. Remember, week 1 was about testing. Week 2, we are going for the win. So with that, before we get to the actual deck edit, which is going to be rather large, we are going to go into a little opening and see if we have anything for the deck. So here we have a lot of past format synchros, most of which are for Edison. I've actually been putting together max 30 Edison Glads, but nobody in my local area has Edison decks built yet. So I'm building as many as I can in lower rarity for us to kind of just share and have fun with. But with that, I also have a couple Lyralist cards. I really want to play the deck. I'm not sure which variant I want to end up playing, so we're just kind of collecting as much as we can. But I do think it looks like a lot of fun. Sir Eminon actually has a lot of really good content on it. But with that, we also got the Black Rose Dragon Extravaganza playmat, so we'll probably end up using that for Edison. And I'm really curious if you're interested in the format. Mario and I were thinking about doing something with it, but love to hear your thoughts and your just general interest. With the mail done, we are now going to head into the deck edit. I'm dropping super polys and tactics to make more room for hand traps, as we are still siding crossouts. Additionally, we are dropping the now antiquated Solid Soldier for Honest Neos. I admittedly didn't play it week 1 simply to see if it was a win more card or an actual resource I needed, and it definitely fell in line with the needed resources. Also, not playing super poly opens up space on the extra for an Anki and a second Cross Crusader, which I now strongly feel is a mandatory 2 of. There were instances that we could have just closed out game, brought back Dystopia, burned for an extra 16, but we didn't have it, and so we are definitely going back to 2. With that, here's our list for week 2, featuring, admittedly, a lot of 2-ofs that I don't necessarily agree with. We are playing 2 Stratos and 2 Vion, not because I think it's correct, but because I checked and I only own 2 Vion. I would be playing 3 with 1 Stratos, but we can't really do that. With that, we are playing 2 of each hand trap simply because we are playing the crossout package and I want as much diversity as possible. And with that, I'm really happy. I think this is a lot better than what we were playing in week 1. I think it has a lot more potential. We're going for the win, which is exciting, though regardless, I know I'll just have fun playing with my friends. And with that, I will see you Saturday. Wish me some luck and let's have some fun.
The very first card pulled was Petite Moth, and I pulled Harper Lady Sisters as the super.
Today we're playing a 12-man locals, and match 1 was against Jim, one of the guys who actually got me really into Yu-Gi-Oh! Back in the early 2000s, but despite drawing 2 bricks and an imperm, I did have the engine cards I needed. So we revealed our Ferris in hand, discarded Shadow Mist, and comboed all the way into the end board of Driver, 0 Mist, Dark Law, change for a second Dark Law or Acid, and an imperm. Unfortunately, he was maining Super Poly and made Draco Stapelia with Dark Law and Shadow Mist. Mist searched a Stratos, then Branded Opening was activated. He discarded a Hedgehog, a Luber was summoned, he sent a Beast, searched follow-up, and of course drew a card. Next, the field spell came down, and at that point I had to use the Mask Change to turn 0 into an Acid. That cleared the entirety of his board, but of course he did have the Shaddoll Fusion for follow-up, though we were living the turn. I summoned the previously searched Stratos on my turn under the Wonder Driver to reset a Miracle Fusion. Stratos grabbed a Dust to Gold, which I promptly discarded to grab a Dark Calling to make a Bane. Bane popped the Construct, which grabbed him back an El Shaddoll Fusion and triggered the Despia and Grave. Stratos and Wonder were linked into a Cross Crusader, which brought back a Mally and gave me the materials I needed to poly for a Dystopia. Dynatag was banished from Grave to boost Dystopia by 1,000, and I used its effect to pop the back row, which he changed Change, and I ashed. From there, I used Miracle to make a Sunriser, and that right there is far more than game on board. So we're headed to game number 2. Now, despite Jim going first here, my hand was looking pretty nice. Jim summoned the Ecclesia, I Veilered, and he proceeded to set 2 in the back row. On my turn, I used Lightning Storm, calling said back row, and Fusion Destiny is 8k damage, so he scooped it up. Admittedly, between the Veiler and Lightning Storm, we got pretty lucky there, but Jim, always such a pleasure to play, and I think he's also building Lyralist with me, so we'll have some fun with that in the future. Match 2 was against a really nice fellow from our neighbor town of Peterborough. I lost the dice roll and didn't draw a great hand, but neither did he, so he set a single monster before passing back. Heroes did what heroes do, comboed, and we attacked for game. Now, in game 2, he went with a very classic end board of Beatrice Pass, and I admittedly had an incredible hand, which did just yet again combo off. Though I got hit by Nibiru, fortunately, I was yet to actually use my normal summon. So I normal summoned the Liquid, brought back a Stratos, and worked through the Torrential Tribute he set off of his Blackjack, which left an open board. So from there, Mally was banished to Special Mally, Polly was dropped to summon Dystopia, Dynatag was banished to boost Dystopia, and I swung in with 3800, boosted it with 2500, and then used Mask Change to turn it into a Dark Law, which very simply stole me the game. Heroes is a pretty good OTK deck. Apparently. We're still playing going first, though. Week 1, we got nibbed and we lost. Week 2, we got nibbed. We played through it. We played through TT and we were able to get the OTK. So I feel like the rust is finally coming off, but really fun match. And while the gameplay was rather one-sided, one of those experiences where you just really enjoy the conversation, and that in itself makes it great. So big thank you to you, and I hope we get to play again soon.
Okay, how's it going?
Now, match number 3 was against Brandon, who you probably remember from the previous episode as our resident Drytron player. Yet again, he was on Drytron, and, well, last week we got the win. This week, we did not. He won that match 2-1. I would show you more of that footage, but you already know what happens. It's Drytron, there's Ava, Ben 10, negates, and that's the match. Round 4 was against Carter. He was playing PK, won the dice roll, and we hand trapped him to the point where he couldn't play. Then we summoned a bunch of fusions and we OTK'd. Thank goodness. Game 2, I drew a couple of bricks, but it was playable. He went through his combo, and it ended on Dragoon, Blade, and a couple of small monsters, which were in attack mode, which meant I didn't actually have to clear Dragoon. I played through his a lot of negates, burned him with Dystopia, and then swung into the small monsters with some really big ones, which ended up taking the game and ensuring our spot in the top 4 with a current 3-1 record. The first round of the top 4 was against another great guy from Peterborough, and I'll be honest, I got very, very lucky. Do you have someone at your locals who you consistently play against, and despite the fact that they should regularly win, you get lucky and then you just win? Like in a scenario where you probably shouldn't, I feel like that's very much our dynamic, and because of that, I was able to take the win. Anyway, we did win that match 2-1, and we are now moving on to the top 2, where you will see a very familiar face.
One of my favorite deck in the
Not PK,
The finals were against Brandon, and they offered a shot at redemption. Brandon had just beaten Geist in his previous match, and he had won our dice roll.
How you feeling?
I won the die roll, baby. I'll take the first place monies.
Now, he didn't open great, and his end board consisted of a Herald and a Linkuriboh. I played through. He called by my Shadow Mist. I built a board, blew up his with Bane, and we swung in, taking the very first game of the match. Now, game 2, I opened a very solid hand. We had some back and forth, but on turn 4, he did kill me with the Boros Sword, taking us to the all-important game 3. Now, I was going first, I opened quite well, and already had access to a double Dark Law, so we let the combo begin. Though, things got really promising when we used our Liquid Soldier to summon our Sunriser. It, of course, searched us a Miracle Fusion, but more importantly, allowed us to draw 2 and discard 1. One of said draws was the incredibly fair and balanced Imperial Order, and the end board consisted of Dark Law, Driver, Sunriser, Mask Change for a second Dark Law, Droplet, and of course, IO. Brandon drew, dropped Dark Ruler. I chained Imperial Order, and just like that, we won our second locals back. Though we didn't just win our second locals, we also won the third. I didn't end up filming it because I felt like I had enough on my plate editing this video, but it's going really well. We got the back-to-back victories. We are going for the three-peat next week, and I know that it's only a 12-person locals, like it's not the biggest deal, but after taking that year and a half off, it's really cool to come back and have the success and do so with a deck like Heroes, which is going to get a lot better next week with Burst of Destiny. We get Destroy Phoenix Enforcer, we get Denier, which is essentially the third and fourth Malicious. So the deck is looking very promising. I do want that three-peat. We're gonna work for it, but it's going to sound crazy. Winning wasn't the greatest part of the night at all. The best part by far was having John return to Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, John, Mario, and I all played together 10 plus years ago, and we haven't seen him in quite some time, though he decided to pick up the cards, come back to the shop. And back in the day, he and Mario were like brothers. They shared a collection, they play tested all the time. Actually, fun little lore about Mario: the very first regionals they went to in Toronto, they both topped it, and it was really cool. Obviously just big brain people doing big brain things, but I returned to Yu-Gi-Oh for the social element. The game itself is a lot of fun, but I loved the community interaction. I loved having the excuse to go out and see my friends every single Saturday. So Yu-Gi-Oh to me is really an avenue for a social experience, and having John back just adds so much to that. So John, big thank you for rejoining us, for being a staple in the community. It was a pleasure. I look forward to next week. And with that, let's try to get the three-peat. Guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of the community. I'll see you soon. Peace and love.